MGK, he's probably the most polarizing character in rock music at the moment, and to be honest, it's for pretty good reason. I mean, he's given us gems just like this, and let's be honest, it's not something to be exactly proud of. I mean, despite the fact that he's abrasive at the best of times and, very questionable at the worst of times, it's no question that a lot of people have really just given him a lot of flack. Thing is though, a lot of rock bands have gotten a lot of flack over the years. I mean, just like go through every single point in history, there's gonna be plenty of bands just getting absolutely shat on just because they're doing something different or just they're complete assholes. But they get successful anyway. But what's the difference between MGK? Isn't he just another one of these asshole rock stars that's just gonna get rich and just fuck off in another 5-10 years? Well, for me, he's actually kind of very different to the others. Well, see, unlike the other decades when we did have these asshole rock stars, rock music was still very much talked about in the mainstream, as opposed to today where it's nowhere near the top 40 at all. And MGK's come up out with this savior god complex that he's come up about, which is really frustrating for the rest of us who just want to listen to rock music and not have to deal with the drama that comes along with a lot of rappers. But when you really think about it, he's kind of right. You kind of do need those big personalities in rock and roll that just don't seem to exist anymore. I mean, if you really look at the last 10 years, how many big bands have come out with like those gripping personalities that all these kids just want to be when they grow up? Like, what happened to those big personalities that just absolutely capturing a young generation and just want to create music for themselves? I mean, if you're looking at metalcore, which is probably the most rock genre that we've got right now, it's really hard to see that we've got many people. The thing is that we just basically can't do better than MGK. Like, he's the 30-year-old dude who's got a personality of a 15-year-old who's not like the other girls. But when you think about it, who else is there to compete with that? I mean, yeah, this is it, ladies and gentlemen. This is the best that we could do. Well done, us. Okay, I'm being a bit harsh for dramatic effect, but if we're really thinking about it, rock has not been mainstream at all in a long time. I mean, if you were to ask me and probably most other people, we're probably listening to bands that are like at least 20 or 30 years old. And, because for good reason, they're still really good. And compared to everything else that's coming out, nothing really gets the same itch as them. Like, how many new bands can you really say compete with the likes of Metallica, Nirvana, AC/DC? Like, how many bands can really say they're at the forefront of rock music like those other previous legacy bands were? I'd say maybe Bring Me the Horizon, but they're at least 10, 15 years old now at this point. Like, and how many other bands are actually like on the same level as them? It's not looking great, to be honest. Now, I'm not gonna say that rock is dead or is dying or anything like that. Let's be honest, it's actually doing alright. It's gaining some popularity. It's not mainstream yet, but with the likes of TikTok Pop Pump making a big revival, there's kind of some hope in the air, to be honest. And even from the regular rock establishment, you've got a lot of the metalcore bands still doing pretty strong from the last 10 or 15 years. And then you've also got the likes of these YouTubers who are also doing a really cool job in actually getting people to go into rock music again. Some of them are even innovating in really cool ways, which is great. It's always a good sign when people are innovating. But the main problem is that while we've got all this cool underground stuff and stuff that's, in that sort of mid-tier sort of stuff, nothing is actually materialized in forms of mainstream success, as in like the big name celebrities that we can all get behind and be like, yes, these are the next guys in rock. And let's be honest, it's probably a bit of jealousy on our part, because despite the fact we all support these other bands that are just haven't quite made it yet, MGK's here, somebody who's basically a complete outsider to the whole scene. He's basically taking up all the media space and is the biggest name right now. He's kind of become the de facto face of rock music, even though not many people really like him and consider him the face of rock music in 2022. And before I go on, I want to be clear, I don't hate MGK. I actually don't mind a few of his songs. It's just that he's such an abrasive character that you just can't help but just be disappointed, to be honest. Like, why the fuck am I watching another MGK video other than him just talking shit with somebody else? Like, it's kind of exhausting. But at the same time, it's kind of the only thing that's really stirring up the pot here. I mean, because everything else just kind of is sucking at the moment. It's kind of just like, yeah, there's some nice things happening, there's some cool stuff, but the problem is like there's no real thing that's like really like pushing out into that mainstream, that really interesting scene that you're like, oh shit, like this is actually happening. Oh man, like I'm actually keen for these big releases to come out. The breakout stars, they always shook things up in the whole rock community. Like, for example, Elvis, like, he was very controversial because he shook his hips, and that was very scary to a lot of people. Yes, the 50s were a weird time. Like, what happened to bands like the Beatles who are like, fuck it, I'm just gonna drop a whole lot of LSD and sing about yellow submarines. I don't wanna sing like, I hold your hand again. Psh. Well, unfortunately, in saying all that, MGK kind of ticks all those boxes. He's abrasive to everybody, and he's really shaking up what it is to be a rock star and, you know, the whole community, even if it's not for the great reasons that we like. And for some reason, he's just appealing to a mainstream audience as well. I mean, love or hate the clout machine, but it just requires a lot of attention. And guess who's pretty good at getting attention, ladies and gentlemen? MGK. But you know what? All things considered, I'm actually kind of hopeful for rock music, because let's be honest, it's probably being a lot better than we think it is right now. I mean, the whole TikTok pop punk thing is a big thing, and that's really good. It seems to me that rock music is finally getting its shit together in terms of social media. A lot of guitar music in pop music as well is coming up, so again, it's another good sign. But will anything materialize? That's really the main question, and to be honest, we don't really know at this point. We're just gonna have to be able to keep supporting artists, and they're gonna have to keep trying to push themselves to the best of their abilities. And, you know, in the meantime, we're just gonna have to deal with MGK, as much as people hate him. So hopefully from all this you get the idea that it's really not just MGK we're pissed off at, it's kind of the point that we're being pissed off that this rock music is kind of stale at the moment. Like, there's things happening surely, but it's not like the exact heights of like the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s or the 50s, basically any single time except the last 10 years basically. Yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a rough ride, but hey, we're in this together, I guess. Anyway, thanks for watching, I'll see you guys next time.